Alright, today we learned about using inverse operations in your notes. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to be solving these two-step equations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the odds, and I want you to do the evens. So you're going to do all the even problems, and I'm just going to do the odds. That way you have an example that's very similar to each one. So let's go ahead and start out with problem number 1. So on problem number 1, we have 6 is equal to a over 4 plus 2. So the first thing we need to do is we're going to use our inverse operations and undo what's been done on this right side of the equation. So right now we're adding 2 to a over 4. So what we need to do is subtract 2. And if we do it to this side of the equation, we have to do the same thing to balance it on the other side of the equation. So we're going to subtract 2 from this side. 2 minus 2 gives me 0, so I'm going to cross it out. And 6 minus 2 gives me 4. I'm going to bring down my a over 4. So now I need to go ahead and do the inverse operation of dividing a by 4. And the inverse operation, or opposite operation, of dividing a by 4 is multiplying a by 4. So I'm going to multiply this side by 4, multiply this side by 4. These cancel out. Anytime you do that, it's going to cancel it out. And what we're going to do is just bring down our a, because that's all we have left is a. And that will always be the case when you're multiplying by the denominator. And on this side, we do 4 times 4, and that gives us 16. And that's our answer for this problem. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and do number 3. So number 3, it says 9x minus 7 equals negative 7. So we want to get x all by itself. That's our goal. So the first thing that we need to do is we need to move our constant over to the other side of the equation. The way we do that is we can add 7 to this side. That's the inverse operation of subtracting, is addition. And then we have to balance our equation, and we'll add 7 to the other side. We'll cross that out. And when we do that, we end up having 9x, and I'm just bringing this down. And negative 7 and positive 7 equals 0. So now we have our next step, right? And here we see that we have a coefficient of 9. Our variable is x. This means 9 times x are 9 x's. And so we're going to do the opposite of multiplying 9 times x, which is dividing x by 9. And we'll do the same thing on the other side to balance out the equation. 9 will go into 9 one time. That just leaves us with x. And 0 can be divided by 9 0 times. And that is the answer to number 3. Alright, on this next problem, problem number 5, we have negative 4 is equal to r over 20 minus 5. So what we need to do is we're going to use our inverse operations. So we're subtracting 5 from r over 20. And when we do these, in case you haven't noticed yet, I want you to think about PEMDAS. When we talk about PEMDAS, or if we were to draw a boss triangle, it means it'll show the same thing. We handle parentheses and exponents first. Then we have multiplication, which is our times, and division. And then we have addition and subtraction. So addition and subtraction are on the same level, and then multiplication and division is on the same level. So what I want you to think about is when we're trying to undo one of these equations and get the variable by itself, we're basically going to start with always trying to handle subtraction or addition first, and then moving on to division or multiplication. So I do want you to keep that in mind. And if in case you're wondering, well, why do you always try to move this constant first? Well, because we're subtracting it from this. This is r divided by 20. So we're going to do that second. This is minus 5. So we're going to do that first. We're going to start at the bottom and then go upwards instead of starting at the top and going downwards like you have normally been doing in mathematics. So the inverse operation of subtracting 5 is adding 5. But we got to make sure that we do it to both sides of the equation so it's balanced out. This gives me 0. Negative 4 plus 5. If I combine those terms, that's going to give me a positive 1. I just bring down my r over 20. Now I need to go ahead and get r by itself, so I need to do the opposite of division. So this is r divided by 20. So to get rid of that, we're going to just multiply by 20. Anytime we multiply by the denominator, we can cancel these out, and it's simply going to equal r. Now we have to balance this equation. We multiplied by 20 over here. We must multiply by 20 over here. And 20 times 1 gives us 20. And that is our answer. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and do number 7. Number 7 looks a little bit more complicated because notice in our numerator we have v plus 9 and then divide it by 3 is equal to 8. So on this particular problem, we can't move that 9 first because we're trying to add it to a variable. So in this case, we actually have to get rid of our 3 first, and then we can deal with the 9. So let's go ahead and do that. So remember, this is v plus 9 divided by 9. And the opposite of dividing by 3 is multiplying by 3. So I'm going to multiply this whole thing by 3. And we're going to multiply 8 by 3. So those cancel out. That leaves us with v plus 9 equals 8 times 3, which is 24. And now we can go ahead and do the opposite of adding, which is subtraction, to move our 9 over. And we're going to move our 9 over here. So we're balanced out our equation. 9 minus 9 equals 0. We just bring down our v. And 24 minus 9 is going to give us 15. And that is our answer. Alright, we're going to go ahead and do number 9. Number 9 is negative 9x plus 1 equals negative 80. So on this one, we can go ahead and start out by subtracting 1 from both sides. So 1 minus 1 equals 0. And negative 80 minus 1 equals negative 81. And then we can just bring down our negative 9x. And the next step is we need to go ahead and get x by itself. So negative 9x, remember that the coefficient is being multiplied to the variable. That's what makes it a coefficient. It's the number, it's the multiplier, the number that's being multiplied to the variable. And so we're going to do the opposite of 9 times x, and we're going to divide it by negative 9. And we got to do that to both sides. So 9 equal to 9 one time, that cancels out. This is x. And negative 81 divided by negative 9 is going to give me positive 9, because a negative divided by a negative is a positive. And that is our answer. Alright, number 11. What we have is negative 2 is equal to 2 plus v over 4. And what we need to do at this point, we're looking over here, we're adding 2 to v divided by 4. So we're going to do our inverse operation. So the opposite of adding 2 would be subtract 2. Subtract 2. So 2 minus 2 is going to give me 0. And negative 2 and negative 2 is going to give me a negative 4. I can bring down my v over 4. Now I want to get v by itself, and I'm dividing v by 4. So the opposite of division, or the inverse operation of division, is multiplying by 4. So those cancel out. All I have left over here is v. And now 4 times negative 4 is negative 16. And that is my final answer. So what I'd like for you to do now is to go ahead and do the other problems, the evens, so 2 through 12, and then turn it in at the end of class, and that's going to be your grade for today.